started. So the first question is, data plays a critical role in understanding refugee situations and shaping policies. Indicators help reveal trends, patterns, and insights while making data more accessible and actionable. So given this, how do you ensure that the data collected is both comprehensive and representative, particularly when dealing with displaced populations who may be difficult to reach? And then how does UNHCR balance the need for high quality disaggregated data with the practical constraints of data collection in complex refugee settings?
Yeah, no, thank you for that question. So indeed, really the critical role of reliable, comparable, and timely data in informing measures on how to improve socioeconomic conditions, understand the impact of large refugee populations and protracted situations, how that could help plan appropriate solutions. These are all highlighted in the Global Compact on Refugees, or what we call the GCR. So the GCR provides the blueprint for governments, international organizations, and other stakeholders to how to transform refugee response initially, and how that could further benefit refugees and their host communities. And the compact also calls for including them within strengthened national data and statistical collection processes, or what we call statistical inclusion. So in implementing the compact, there are several key benchmarks. So we have the Global Refugee Forum. We had one in 2023. We have a high-level officials meeting that is coming up in December this year. And then we have the GCR indicator report that will be released in November this year, just a month before the high-level official meetings. So all of these key benchmarks, their goal is essentially to follow up and to review the implementation of the compact. So, for example, if we take the GCR indicator report, that is really a report that is based on data. It's based on the GCR indicator framework. And the purpose of that data is to help measure and sustain progress on the four objectives of the compact, and at the same time monitor advancements in statistical inclusion. So I guess in short, my answer to that question is that, how do we ensure to balance this need for high quality disaggregated data with the practical constraints, is really our work through statistical inclusion. So statistical inclusion is not new. UNHCR and many other stakeholders have been working on that. But in the last Global Refugee Forum, there was this momentum where the international community rallied to further implement this commitment to include refugees and other displaced population in national data collection systems to help improve their lives. So during the forum, we have seen what we call a multi-stakeholder pledge. So we have seen more than 100 financial, technical, material, and policy commitments. Where we have governments, UN agencies, and other GCR stakeholders promising to work towards statistical inclusion, so meaning to systematically include refugees and other displaced population in their national data production system. So, for example, including them in national censuses, in administrative registers, or nationwide household surveys. So really, by supporting this work on statistical inclusion, UNHCR and its partners put considerable effort into addressing some of these critical gaps in the data landscape that we see now in displacement statistics. So, for example, whether it's addressing the difficulties in implementing standardized concepts and definitions, limited coverage of socioeconomic data, um, which is important to understand the situations of refugees, especially if we compare that to the host communities, and just the political, the technical, and the operational challenges of statistical inclusion. So that work is also leveraged by UNHCR's focus on partnership and innovation. And we see that in some of the recent work that we have been doing. So, for example, we have a forced displacement survey that we have now implemented in a number of countries. We are strengthening our refugee data finder. So that's kind of like our data portal where you can now find population and demographic statistics, but we're also strengthening that to include more thematic indicators, so socioeconomic data, for example. So I think to summarize, we really what we do to address that is to really work on this statistical inclusion work that we're doing. And then strengthen that with partnerships and innovation.
Thank you, Grace. Thank you very much for your response. Let me move then to my second question, which is uh, it's based on the idea that data is only as powerful as the action it informs. So the report that you mentioned emphasizes the need for accelerated and scaled up efforts to meet the objectives of the Global Compact on Refugees, the GCR. In your experience, what would you say are the best ways to ensure that the data-driven insights lead to tangible policy changes and better outcomes for refugees? Thank you.
Yeah, so as I mentioned, at UNHCR, we are really jump-starting this work on statistical inclusion. And so we are also developing a measurement framework, or what we call the Statistical Inclusion Navigator, INCNAV, which is essentially it's a guidance. It's to help empower countries to understand and monitor how we collect, produce, use, and finance data initiatives. So to answer your question, I think from experience, what I would say is that it's really important to look at the different dimensions that could help to ensure that we are collecting and using the right data in the right way for better outcomes for refugees. So how do we do that? So through this INCNAV, what we actually do is first we are looking at statistical laws, strategies and policies. And so we do that because we believe that in order to institutionalize the inclusion of refugees and other displaced populations in data collection system, we should ensure that that is reflected in the governance, in the legal standards. So that's the first dimension. And then next, we are also looking at the data production and the dissemination and the use of data. So this is really to ensure that, like I said, we have the right data, disaggregated data, and it doesn't end there because we don't just collect data for its own sake, but we want to make sure that it's made available and accessible widely in a format, especially that is understandable to the refugees, the host communities, and other displaced population. And then that is used correctly in the media and policy and by society at large. And I think that's even becoming more important in the context where we are operating right now, where misinformation and disinformation is used for othering or the rhetoric against the refugees. So I think that's really important to maintain the trust in data. Next, another dimension we're looking at is meaningful participation. So whether it's participation by refugees, internally displaced people, and stateless people in the entire data life cycle. So from the collection, the way we develop our collection methods, our questionnaires, the way we ask them, all the way to the end of dissemination and analysis. So that I think for us, we believe that is essential to improve the trust and the usefulness of the data. And lastly, we also looking at how much financing goes into these data initiatives that include refugees. Again, this concept of being sustainable and institutionalization. Sorry. So we must ensure that we have adequate financing. So really, I think what we're doing is that, for future progress in statistical inclusion, that requires a collaborative effort, not only from the data and the statistical community, but the whole of society, as we have seen in these different dimensions that I've discussed. And to do that, we hope that such work as like the INCNAV would help inform that entire process of work.
Thank you. That was fantastic. And thank you also for mentioning this, well, the whole of society approach, but also the point about meaningful participation. This is something that we're trying to really strengthen a little bit throughout the course. So it's good that you mentioned it in the interview as well. Thank you very much for that. It's been a pleasure to reconnect and to record this session. Thank you very much. Maybe one follow-up question from my side is there any material that you think would be relevant to include for participants to look at? Any links that you would like to share? I think we have some from last year. I think you had shared, no,
Yeah.
the link to the report or something. So we're going to pick everything, sort of save everything that you had last year. But if there's anything that you would like to add, please feel free to send, and we can put it on the platform for participants to look at.
Yeah, sure. So I think I'll share with you new materials on the statistical inclusion. I mean, I mentioned some of the kind of like innovative work that we're doing on the forced displacement survey
Mm-hmm.
and the revamping of our refugee data finder. So I'll send those as well. And if useful, also some of the materials for the high level officials meeting in
Great.
December. No, so
Great.
thank you. Thank you
Of
again
course.
for including this and good luck with the
Thank
training.
you, you too. And listen, we've still haven't started working on it, but we've put back on the calendar this year a course that is titled Measuring and Analyzing Labor Migration, which is very much about migration statistics.
Mhm.
But as with every course that we have in our portfolio, we're also trying to sort of include a little bit the forces placement dimension into it as well. So I might reach back out to you towards the second half of the year. The course starts, I think, in November, mid-November.
Yeah.
So it'll be sort of like a way of wrapping the year. And if you'll be available, we'd be happy to engage again.
Yeah,
I
sure.
might reach out
So
again.
just reach out.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you so much, Grace.
Thank
Have
you.
a
Have a
lovely
good
rest of the
day.
day. Good luck.
Bye
Bye bye.
bye.